This email made me cry. Hello, welcome back to another solo episode of Queen Talks. I know I haven't done one of these in a very long time. I think the last time I did one was right when summer started. And yeah, I miss these, but I think I really just enjoy being the interviewer. I like to ask questions. I like to get to know my guests and learn new things. And it's just weird for me to sit down and talk so much for like 30 minutes. Usually that's how long I record these solo episodes for. And it seems like eternity because it is a lot to talk this much. I actually do not like talking a lot unless someone's asking me questions. So this will be interesting to get back to these, but I wanted to hop on here because I did receive a very jaw-dropping email from a soccer dad in a good way, which I'll get to. It was very emotional, and I really want to address it because I think a lot of parents listening right now are probably going through the same thing and struggling with the same thoughts. And yeah, I'll get into it soon, but I do have a whole agenda of what I want to cover in this solo episode. I had to write it all down to just keep it organized so I don't miss anything. But it's been a while since I've updated everyone on my health journey. And if you're just hearing about this, I'll try and keep the story very short, but over a year ago, I was having very mysterious symptoms that just appeared out of nowhere. I was having a sore throat, sinus issues, congestion, runny nose, like constant sinus issues, insomnia, anxiety, gut distress, stomach issues, fatigue, brain fog. I mean, the list went on. I think I had like 20 symptoms at one point, and it was so weird because I pride myself in being very healthy, eating a good diet, not drinking alcohol, getting out in the sun, exercising every day, not killing myself exercising, and not raising my cortisol too much. So I like to think I live a fairly healthy, balanced life. So when all these symptoms mysteriously showed up, I was like, something else needs to be causing it. So after a ton of doctor's visits, I mean, I saw regular doctors, I saw naturopaths, I saw any specialists, ENTs, gastroenterologists, gosh, so many people. And it was just a whirlwind. And after all those visits, I started to dig a little bit deeper. I mean, I just kept getting prescribed things to just treat all these symptoms, but no one was really figuring out what was causing it. So I was lucky enough to finally get to the bottom of it. And I discovered that we had insane levels of mold in our home. And indoor molds can be very toxic to humans if you're exposed to them for a long period of time. I lived in this house for a year, and that's kind of when I started to get all these symptoms. And we discovered that we had it behind our walls in our kitchen, behind our walls in our dining room, our master shower, our back office room. So basically, all the places where I was spending the most time. And mold can be very toxic to humans, especially if you have an autoimmune disease like I do. And what happens is indoor molds let off these toxins called mycotoxins. Trust me, I know way too much about this stuff, more than I wanted to ever know. But basically, mycotoxins can attack any and every system of the body. So you can experience respiratory issues, neurological issues, gut issues. And it just so happens I experienced pretty much all of them. So finally figured that out. Recently, in the past few months, we remediated it all out of our house, and I finally feel like I am on the other side of it. And not a lot of you know this, but for the past year, I mean, I was really sick. I did a really good job of not showing it, but I still had a lot of my symptoms, the sinus issues, the fatigue, the brain fog, the anxiety, and I was just pushing through. I was still coaching, I was still podcasting and consistently releasing 2 episodes a week. I was still traveling and going to speaking engagements. And I honestly think doing that still helped. I think when people tend to have a chronic illness, they kind of wallow in their sorrow and just think about how sick they are, but I didn't think that was productive. I did it for a little bit and it was not making me feel any better. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to continue living life the best I can and acting as if I am healthy. So I did that and I actually did start to feel a little bit better despite our house not getting cleaned up yet and taken care of. So I got better and better each month. And I think there was such a mindset component to all of this. Yes, you have to get the mold out of your house. Yes, you have to really dial in on your diet even more and maybe take some supplements or nutrients that you're deficient in. But I really think if you have a positive mindset, that's only going to speed up your healing process. So as I went through all this, I was trying not so much to cling to my diagnosis or be super fearful that I was living in a home that wasn't quite safe yet. I think I still kind of struggle with that. I think there's places I'll go to, like Starbucks, and I'll see like mold on the air vents and I'll kind of like freak out and then I'll remind myself, no, like I got this. I've gotten through this. I'll be okay. And I'm still kind of getting past that, but I think the mindset piece definitely played a role and I was healing and getting better within all this. But now that we've gotten everything remediated, I finally feel like I'm myself again. Even though it looks like for the past several months I was already myself, but I definitely did a good job of trying to push through and act like nothing was going on. But we made it. So we are here, we are back. And that's why I want to start getting back into these solo episodes because they do take a lot of time to prepare for. They do take a little bit of extra energy. And I feel like now that I'm fully myself again, I can hop on a camera and talk for longer. So that's why I'm back. But yeah, mold is it's toxic. I'm not saying everyone's going to get sick by it if you have it in your house, but if you're experiencing weird symptoms and you're a pretty healthy person and if you've gotten every blood test done and if you ruled everything out and if you've seen every specialist and you still don't know why you're having all these symptoms, you might want to check your house because it can be really serious stuff if you are breathing it in. And I realized the importance of breath because we take over 20,000 breaths a day. So our air quality does matter. And I'm much more mindful of that. In my home, we probably have an air purifier in every single room now. In the gym where my girls work out, I have a very high grade air purifier because the air athletes breathe matters. So I've definitely learned a lot in that sense. And I've learned way too much about mold and mycotoxins and treatments. I mean, it's crazy. But anyway, as hard as it was sometimes, as sick as I was some days, I learned a lot from it. I learned about my nutrition, my health, and things I can be doing to have more resiliency against a toxic environment. So it was a blessing in disguise in a way. And I always try to look on the bright side of all this. All right, so moving on from the health update, I don't like to spend too much time talking about it because it has been a whirlwind. But podcast update. So here we are in my new studio, and we actually built this and painted the studio right around Hurricane Milton. And we were like, you know what? Instead of freaking out and watching the news, we're just going to build a podcast studio. So we were trying to take our minds off what was going on with the hurricane. Don't worry, we're safe in our house. We don't live close to the ocean or the Tampa Bay area. We are very far inland, so we just stayed home. We were not in an evacuation zone, so we just decided to stick it out and hunker down, which is what most Floridians do. So if you're not from Florida, I know it's hard to understand, but most Floridians who are more inland and not in a flood zone stay home and stick it out. So during that time, just another blessing in disguise. We built the studio. We are very grateful not to have any major damage to our home, no flooding in our neighborhood. And yeah, we are just trying to do our best to keep distracted. So here's the studio. I got pictures from my girls and coaching, which I love. I think is such a nice touch. And then obviously we had to get the purple LEDs in here. I got, of course, my air purifier. So the air is good that I'm breathing since I spend a lot of time in here. So, yeah, we're trying to really up level the podcast and just deliver a high quality production. I think when I started the podcast, oh my gosh, I started it in 2020 actually. So I think when I started it, it was more of, oh, like this will be fun and, not really a serious thing. I was like, okay, I'll do a podcast where I'll talk about soccer training and female athlete training and have amazing experts in the female athlete space on, and just be super fun and laid back. Now it's kind of turned into something very serious. I mean, I am starting to realize that people are enjoying the conversations, which I'm really grateful for. I didn't think people would listen to it, to be honest, but it's really gained a lot of traction in the past few years. And most of my audience is parents of female athletes and also coaches of female athletes. So I'm very grateful that people are excited to learn and help their daughters out or help their girls' teams out. So I'm going to continue to go strong because you guys want me to. So got some really exciting things coming. Obviously, the studio is a big one, and just making sure it's quality. And one of my goals is to eventually have guests in person. I don't know if I'll reach that level because I really need to figure out how I'm going to fly people out and put them up in a hotel. So maybe one day we'll get to that level, but that would be one of my goals, is to have in-person conversations and longer conversations too. I think it's really important to continue to do long form content. I've started to move away from just the quick tweets. If I do post anything on Twitter, it's to share that I have a podcast episode up or I wrote an essay of a blog. I don't really like short form content as much because I feel people don't learn deeply about a topic. And I think people still do crave long form in this instant gratification, quick fix world. So thank you for appreciating learning about subjects deeply and listening to my guests for almost an hour, maybe over with some of our episodes. It's been really great. So I'm going to continue to put podcast content out there. One more thing with the podcast that I will update soon. This is going to be a big deal. So I called this podcast the Soccer Queens podcast because I was mainly working with soccer female athletes when I started the show. But now I work with all female athletes, and I've worked with volleyball players, field hockey, cheerleaders, dancers, tennis, and strength and speed and power training is very similar across all sports. Where it differs is more the technical and skill work, and then maybe some energy system and conditioning work. But overall, strength is strength, power is power. All female athletes need to become strong and powerful with similar exercises in the gym. So I do train all female athletes. And beyond that, people who listen to my podcast, even though it is Soccer Queens, I've gotten messages from people who aren't even soccer people who listen to the podcast. They just tell me, hey, my daughter's volleyball, but we just substitute the word soccer with volleyball and it still applies to her. So with that, I'm starting to think, should I rebrand the podcast? Should I get rid of the Soccer Queens name and make it more towards just general female athletes? I don't know. I am trying to figure it out. My books are also geared to just general female athletes of all sports. I'm kind of leaning towards that, you guys. So stay tuned for that because it's going to happen pretty soon and it's going to be crazy. I know a lot of my followers were like, don't get rid of the Soccer Queens name. It's so awesome. It's so memorable. And I get that. It is. I love it. I think it's hard for a lot of people to let go and to change, and people hate change. But I promise you, if I do change it, it's going to be awesome and you won't be disappointed. So be open to my changes. Okay, one more update before I get into this very crazy email I got from a soccer dad. So just a training update. I am training in person in Tampa, Florida still. I will never stop training in person. I think a lot of people think because I have a social media presence, I only do online coaching, but actually my online coaching is like probably the smallest part of what I do. I have a great core group of remote athletes who are awesome. They are the best. They are so consistent with their program. They're great at communicating, just awesome girls. Mainly soccer players, but some track, some volleyball, some field hockey. So again, all female athletes, but I am training a lot in person. And another thing I realized is yes, social media is important to get your message out, create impact, to educate people, but I want to do more of getting out in person in my community and helping everyone locally. And I'm starting to do more of that and just getting out, speaking to teams, speaking to local high schools and their female athletes, and just spreading the message in person because I think the in person connection is still so needed now. And I don't know, I'm just moving away from this online persona, I guess. Yes, the podcast is still going, but Instagram again, like I don't really post unless there's an episode clip. Hey, podcast up. Here's what my guest is saying, or if it's like a past tweet that I said. But I don't do reels. I'm never gonna dance on reels again. I'm not gonna point at things and use the trending music. Like I just really don't care about that stuff. I also just I don't know. I just don't like posting so much anymore on Instagram because it takes away from your personal life too. And I used to share a little bit more on my stories with what I was doing throughout my day, like in my personal life, but now I just don't. I think there's some things that people should keep private. I don't know. I'm just kind of sick of the online world. I think people share too much and I just wanna live kind of a quiet life. Yeah, it's just something I've been thinking about lately, and I have been doing this recently that's been really amazing is I don't post on the weekends anymore. Saturdays and Sundays are for me, Casey, and Bella, my husky, and nothing else, and I don't feel the need to document my whole life on the weekends because it doesn't matter, like, and I think a lot of influencers online think they have to constantly be posting to stay relevant or to keep their followers or to get engagement, but I'm just like, at what cost? Like you can only post like your night out with your husband so much or you spending time with your babies. It's like some stuff kind of needs to stay private and you need to like be in the moment there. So I've just moved away from all that. I'm just kind of over it. Anyway, all right. So that's my rant, my updates on my health, the podcast, exciting news coming, and then what's going on with my training still. So this email I got from this dad, let me pull it up. I know you guys are like on the edge of your seat ready to hear what this guy said that made me cry. Let me just say I've gotten a lot of emails from parents in my coaching career, not just from parents of athletes that I work with, but just parents who follow me online or who found my website through Google and they decided to reach out in the contact form. So this dad reached out, he found my website, and the subject line of the email was speed. That's it, just speed. He opens the email that he is the father of a 9-year-old girl, and he was wondering if speed was important for Division One soccer. And he just asked me, "Do you have any advice for me to get her ready for Division One soccer and to make sure that she's not the slowest on her team? And we want to make sure that she's ready for D1." I was just thinking the whole time, first of all, she's 9, and then second of all, is it her who wants to play D1 soccer, or is it you as the dad? So that's always my question when it's a parent reaching out on behalf of a really young kid. Look, there's been maybe 1 or 2 times in my coaching career where a 9-year-old will say, "I want to play professional one day." But usually that's after watching a World Cup game on the TV and being like, "Oh, like, I wanna do that." Like, they're just inspired by that game, which is totally normal, but I think most 9-year-olds are just they're more present than that, and they're not so set on this end goal because they're just trying to figure out what ice cream flavor they want that day. Let's be honest. But yes, there might be some 9-year-olds where they say, oh, I want to play at UNC or I want to play for the national team. Fair. But most 9-year-olds aren't so set on the goal, and it's usually the parent that is pushing it on them. So I really wanted to help this dad out. I wanted to email him back and use this as an education moment for him to not so much focus on that D1 outcome and getting her fast for D1. I wanted him to focus on making sure she loves the game, making sure she got exposed to a broad range of athletic skills and activities and hobbies young, and she wasn't just doing soccer. And I decided to take about 15 minutes out of my day to write back this dad a whole dissertation because I really wanted to help him, because I realized it's not his fault. It's not his fault that he is maybe pushing D1 or his daughter, or he is so worried about her not being fast enough because he's probably looking around on social media at other 9-year-olds doing a bunch of speed training or having their own track coach. It is hard for parents, and I get that. And I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's a bad dad. That's not the case at all. I feel for parents, and I know what they're being blasted with, which is why I took 15 minutes out of my day to write a really long email back to hopefully help educate the dad, but to first and foremost help the daughter so that she's not pressured too young. She's not so set on that Division 1 outcome so young, and she just enjoys the process and becomes the best athlete and human she can be. So I opened my email with my first paragraph, and in the first paragraph, I just basically explained to the dad, hey, here's what's going on at 9 years old. Here's what's going on physically, emotionally, and kind of hormonally. So 9-year-olds should build a broad foundation of athletic skills through different sports, different movements, not just a single sport like soccer. She needs to build skills like balance and coordination and body awareness and being able to react, because reaction is a component of speed. Yes, you can be fast, but if you're not a fast thinker, you're not going to be that quick in soccer, and it's not going to transfer. So I tried to hammer home to him that you do not want to sign your 9-year-old up for this advanced speed training where you have a drill sergeant speed trainer coaching them up through all these predictable drills. You need your 9-year-old to be in a speed class where she is challenged with her reaction, her creativity, her problem solving, mainly through fun games, mainly through tag, relays, mirror drills, handball, dodgeball. I mean, any game that we grew up with in the 90s. That's how I run all of my 9 to 12-year-old speed classes, and it's only going to benefit them in that window of time when they're so young and they're so malleable and their brains are still developing and their bodies are still developing these skills. They need to be exposed to these things. So that was my first paragraph, okay? Then my second paragraph, I recommended who the dad follows because I know what the algorithm is blasting him with. Probably a bunch of speed training nonsense for 9-year-olds who are attached to sleds, who are doing marching and skipping drills or doing 30-inch box jumps at age 9. And there's a coach, a one-on-one coach in a one-on-one setting telling the kid exactly what to do. That is the worst thing for 9-year-olds. Okay. So my whole second paragraph was recommending experts who he should follow and not the nonsense that he's being blasted with on social media. I know so many academics and researchers who have dedicated their lives to youth athletic development. I've had Dr. Joe Eisenman on the podcast, Dr. Sean Cumming, Dr. Rick Howard. I mean, these are some of the biggest researchers in youth long-term athletic development to build the best athletes, but also the healthiest kids. So I recommended he follow all of them. I sent him a few podcast episodes as well. So in the paragraph, I mentioned the episode with James Baker, where he talks about how parents of young kids should not hire these advanced speed trainers, and it should be fun at that age, and it should involve creativity and problem solving. So I recommended that. And I also linked the podcast that I did with Dr. Sean Cumming, who is an expert in growth and maturation. So, what's going on during the female athlete growth spurt? So, this dad's daughter is 9 years old. Maybe she's about to hit her growth spurt soon. I mean, it could happen at age 10 or 11. And I wanted him to be prepared for that because during that time, training has to be very well thought through. And we want to make sure that she stays healthy during such a precarious time and she's not put into such intense and advanced training so young. So I sent him the growth spurt episode and I just linked a bunch of other research studies for him to take a look at. So I was really using it as this education moment. I just see parents just so lost and just so sucked into the noise and the things that make them ooh and ah online. Or they're like, oh my gosh, my neighbor's training with this guy who trained professional athletes. And they're not thinking through that, oh, well, if that trainer supposedly trains professional athletes, why are they training your kid? Oh, it's a cash cow at that point. Let's be honest. I mean, if a trainer was that busy training pros, then why are they taking on your kid as a client? Usually, the best trainers who work with kids only work with kids. They have dedicated their lives to it. So they have to be specialists in child development, athletic development, and growth and maturation. So I really want parents to use discernment. I then closed the email with a third paragraph. I mean, my paragraphs were so long. I almost was like, "Oh my gosh, I wonder if this guy will even respond to me or like read this." But whatever, I'm still gonna take time to do it. So the third paragraph, I said to him, "Look, I have a very special place in my heart for the young ones because I've seen this happen before. I've seen this happen where young girls are pressured too young or their parent or them, they're so set on that D1 outcome. And then the moment adversity strikes or they fail, their world is upside down and they're not having fun with soccer anymore and they're not enjoying the process. And I've seen girls quit. I have seen girls quit. And worse yet, the parents are floored that they quit. It came out of nowhere for them because they thought she was enjoying herself and having fun and everything was all fine and dandy. But I think parents really need to check in with their daughters and ask them, "Are you truly enjoying this or are we pressuring you too much and is this my dream or is this my daughter's dream?" So I told him I have a very special place in my heart for the young ones because I've seen bad things happen. We're not just saying burnout just because it is an actual thing. It is happening. And when you read the research studies too, it is happening. I will link all of the research studies in the caption below if you're someone who says, well, show me the science. It's right there. So go check it out. So, experience and evidence based burnout is a thing. And yeah, I just closed with just some emotional words and said, "Hey, I really care about the future of your daughter. She is very young and I want you to do the right thing. And I understand it's hard to do the right thing because of all the noise out there and what everyone else is doing, but if you stick out like a sore thumb and you go against the crowd, in the end, your daughter will win, no matter what. She'll be healthy. She'll love the sport. Maybe she'll find other hobbies. Maybe she won't even play soccer. Maybe she falls in love with something else. Is that still a win? At least she found something she loved. It's so hard for me to get these emails sometimes. I get them on a regular basis, but trust me, I send people my response. I send them my 2 cents, and not everyone gets back to me, to be honest. When I take the time and show them the research and tell them experts and academics to follow in the youth development space, not everyone gets back to me. And after I sent this email, a month went by, he still didn't get back to me. It got to me. I was like, "Man, I just don't get it." Like, when someone takes the time to really help a young girl who's going through a very precarious time and for you to maybe not respond to that like someone who actually really wants your daughter to be successful, it can be frustrating at times. But a couple days ago, I was like, "Oh man, that guy still hasn't emailed me back yet. I don't think he will." And literally within hours of thinking that in my head, I get a message in my inbox from the dad. I open it. I read the email, and I'm not gonna lie, I might have shed a few tears because I think I was expecting him to respond in kind of a defensive and combative way, just how he presented himself in the first email. He seemed like very dead set on the D1 dream for his 9-year-old girl. I think I was expecting an email from him to kind of, I guess, give me a hard time, but it was not that at all. It caught me completely off guard. So, I know what you're thinking. What did the email say? Why did it make Erica cry? So I'm going to read it. And obviously, every email message I read on this podcast is anonymous. So here is the email. Hi, Erica. Sorry it took me so long to send you an email. I am very grateful for your detailed response. Your words and the great videos you sent have really helped me to think about my daughter's development. As a result, I have been encouraging her to broaden her horizons. I bought her the mountain bike she wanted, had her take a couple of ninja lessons, and I am signing her up for recreational basketball. She plays football with the boys at school and asked if there are teams for girls. I told her I wasn't sure, but I am encouraging her to learn all she wants. I've been making the mistake of pushing her. Give me 1 second. All right. We're good. Sorry. Man, this is too much, you guys. Okay. Here we go. We're almost done. We're almost through it. Grab your tissues. Right. I've been making the mistake of pushing her too hard to train in soccer. Yesterday, she wept, telling me that she wants to go back to how it used to be, just she and I playing around with the soccer ball, not training. It's hard as a father who sees how much potential a girl has if she just works on it. I see the videos of the kids her age training repetitively in a kind of professional fashion and think she needs to do that in order to make it at a competitive level. But the joy of a thing has to be the heart of it, and she needs to lead the way. Thanks again. Sincerely, Anonymous. Wow. This was probably one of the most amazing emails I've gotten in my coaching career because I think it's easy as parents to, I guess, not admit that you are pushing your kid too much. I think I've heard so many times from parents, well, I'm not that crazy parent. No way that's me. And I think it is hard for some to admit, oh, shoot, like maybe that is me. I really commend this dad for sitting on the information I sent him, and I know it took him a month to get back to me, and at first I was taking it personally that he just, like, ignored my email, but I think he was, like, actually doing the research with what I sent him, and it shows in his final response to me that he, like, really thought about it and realized, "Wow, I was pushing her on the soccer dream and doing this professional training so young because," and he admitted to it. He sees her other friends doing it and he thinks that's what she has to do because it's all over the internet or all over his friends' Facebook pages or whatever. And for him to admit that he was wrong in that is just so amazing. I know a lot of you listening are parents. I just really want you to ask yourselves, is this me? Is it my dream? Them just playing soccer or whatever sport, or them eventually going to play at a top D1 school or professional. Like, whose dream is it? Check in with your girl. Check in. Are you having fun? Are you getting tired of this? Do you want to try something else? And like this dad said, this daughter wanted to try mountain biking and football with the boys. And I don't know. I think sometimes we just have to ask our kids instead of just assuming this is the sport they want or they want to do this year round or continue to blast through the summer and play their single sport. Maybe they want the summer off. Have you thought to ask? So I really wanted to get on here to just open everyone's eyes to what is going on in the youth space, just to really sit with themselves and ask, is it my dream for my kid? Am I pressuring them? Or can I just be open to the idea that they might not ever be a soccer player for college, or they might quit and love something else. I mean, I just had a high school girl. I mean, she's still playing soccer, but she decided not to go out for the high school team, and her parents supported her in that. She just wanted to spend more time doing other things and work on cinema and videography and other hobbies, but I wouldn't say that's a failure. My gosh, no. That is a success. A girl found something that she's passionate about and wants to do. She's just replacing soccer with something else that's fulfilling and meaningful. And I think as parents, you have to realize that it's not a failure if your daughter doesn't live this grandiose sports dream or college dream that you have for her. It could happen that she just doesn't wanna play that sport anymore, and if she does, then that means she fell in love with it young, she had fun, she didn't burn out too soon, she became a well-rounded kid, and usually the athletes who make it the furthest are the ones who were well-rounded kids when they were young, and they just developed this organic passion for their sport, and it was never forced on them. I've had a ton of former D1 athletes on my podcast, like Renee Washington from LaSalle, Bridget from UNC. I've had Sarah Shupansky from Pittsburgh. All of them said that when they were young, their parents were never like they were involved, but in a way that was supportive. They never forced, like, you need to do soccer, you need to play through the entire year, you need to do like all this serious training when you're super young. No, they played rec or they dabbled in other things and they still turned out okay. They organically got recruited because they fell in love with the sport and they just were really great soccer players. And I think there's something to be said about as parents just really sitting back and letting the clock do its job. Sam Portland, who I had on a few weeks ago, he's a speed coach, and we talked about speed training in young kids and how some kids, when they're 9 years old, like the girl of this dad, they might be the slowest ones at 9 years old, and we can try and do so much to force them and train them hard to get fast, but in the end, nature always wins. And maybe when she gets through her growth spurt and gets into her more mature state and grows into her body, maybe at age 15, she's the fastest on the team. I've seen it happen time and time again. And you just have to let the clock do its job. We can't force nature. We can't force a flower to bloom faster. That's not how it works. We can nurture it the best we can, but we can never force. So just nurture and support her journey and just lean into this beautiful process that is athletic development. Oh, that was a lot for today. I wasn't expecting to tear up again, but gosh, this email just really speaks to me. And I'm obviously it is anonymous, but maybe one day, if you're listening, whoever sent me the email, maybe one day if you want to come on the podcast and share, I'd be happy to talk to you because I think a lot of parents can relate to this. Thank you so much for listening to my solo episode. I was nervous to get on here. I haven't done one in a while, and it was a very heavy topic, but I think I just need some encouragement to do the solo episodes more. So if you guys like the solo episodes, definitely like the video below. And yeah, I'm happy to do more of them, especially now that we got the studio up and running. And yeah, I just appreciate you guys listening so much. Let me know in the comments what you think, maybe what resonated with you and what you're going to take from this. So thank you, and I will see you on the next episode.